Wow, did you hear that? That was loud. Alright, sorry everybody. Welcome back to the drawing logs. I'm Brian, and I was drawing some stuff today and the other days. So, what have I been drawing? Let me stop fiddling with the scum wrapper. So, I was drawing a comic book cover for my character, who I'm not going to get into here, because that's not what we're here to talk about. But yeah, so I already had drawn the character herself in a separate time, and then I was like, hey, I should be recording this because it's sort of just like something you do on the side. So what I've been trying to work with lately is color. I haven't done color for a very long time. It's something that I always sort of was like, oh, that's too hard. So I'm trying to figure it out, and that was the main purpose of this. Is I was like, well, I really want to try color and make sure that's the most important thing I'm working with. And while doing that, still figuring out my sort of like style with the color and how that would work. So generally, when I'm drawing, I always like to do really thick lines. And when I wasn't doing color, if I'm shading, I love to work in just like super big areas of black and have that as like high contrast as possible. So I wanted to figure out, okay, how do I do that with color, and then also how the fuck do I actually color things, because it's hard. It's hard for me. So for here, I was trying to play around with like the highlight, make sure it's as confident as possible. I wanted to make sure that it comes off as intentional, so I went for this bright orange light and tried to play around with that. But another thing that I'm not very good at and haven't been practicing a lot is detail. Um, Detail is hard, and knowing how to draw things correctly is also hard. So, my problem with detail, and generally what I was thinking about when I was drawing this, is when you work for a long time adding in details, that it becomes very monotonous. You sort of get to a point where you start to wonder if it's really like, is this really worth it? Um, when you're working on it, you're like, well, I'm spending all this time on this thing, and especially at the stage I'm at right now, it's not like, oh, if I spend 5 hours on a drawing, it's gonna look good at the end. I don't really know, you know, and obviously, like, I don't dislike what I make, but when it's so easy to find so many things that are like, wow, that's just amazing. You can Google awesome art and an AI will show up. But also real art will show up and you'll be like, wow, that's just so incredible. Think about all the time it took to make that and the skill it took to make that. So when you're doing detail as someone who's not as good at it, as more of like an intermediate uh, level artist or whatever, it sort of feels like, well, what's even the point? It's hard to see improvement at the end of doing all this monotonous stuff without knowing for sure that what you're gonna make is like good, and not just good to you, but good to other people. You know, I've never been paid to do art, uh, which sucks. I wish I could, and I think what comes with that is a lot of uncertainty and feeling like, well, is this really worth it? When I have no substantial proof that what I'm working on, the what I'm sinking all my time into, is going to really turn out to be anything worthwhile, and if I'm going to be able to sustain myself uh, off of this. And that's the way detail is too. There's just a lot of uncertainty and trying to figure out how to do it right without really knowing if you're doing it right along the way. So yeah, that was my sort of issue with this drawing and detail and color in general. I feel like I am fairly confident in my line work. You know, Not entirely. I mean, what you're seeing on screen right now is this like embarrassing cartoon skull that I fucked up like 20 times. Um, But yeah, so sort of trying to learn and improve in new ways and sinking time into that and not knowing if it's going to be worth it is stressful, and I think it takes away from the sort of like relief and escapism maybe you would get, or some sort of like pleasure you would get from doing art, when it becomes something that you need to hone and improve to a level that other people can look at it and be like, that's sick, instead of just you looking at it. I can look at the stuff I make all day and be like, that's sick because I like it, or I was like, well, maybe it's not super good, but when I was doing it, it meant something to me, and that has value, But when you have to get in front of people and be like, this is great, that's when it's like, well, I don't. It doesn't matter what I think at that point. It matters what they think, because I'm trying to sell them something. I'm trying to sell them either my skill or the thing I made or anything like that. And so, you could say things, well, like, just be confident, or like, don't worry about what other people think. But when you're trying to make something out of this and trying to get somewhere with it, you do have to. And all that time you spend being like, well, I spent 10 hours on these stupid. One second. Sorry, I was chewing gum and it just turned into dust. It's awful. Anyway, what was I saying? People, when they look at your stuff, they don't really think about all the time you spent on it. Or maybe they do, but maybe they don't. And if you're trying to sell yourself, you can't just sell people on like, well, I worked really hard. Doesn't that count for something? It's like, no, they don't care. If they don't want to put on a T-shirt, if they don't want to watch it, they want to put it on their wall. It doesn't matter, because they're not going to sell it that way. So yeah, all in all, doing this is hard and it takes time, and not knowing if that time spent is going to work out kind of sucks, So that's what was on my mind when making this drawing. It's incredibly depressing if you haven't made it. I'm sure people have made it and be like, well, it's worth it. And it's like, well, it did work out for you, but other people, maybe they're not so lucky, or maybe they don't have the ability to do so. There's a lot of doubt that comes with not being stable or not getting paid for the stuff you do, And that's what I'm struggling with. And I don't really have an answer after all this time. I don't really have a good thing for people to walk away with and be like, oh, well, it'll all work out. I'll be sick. Because I don't know. This is just me hoping that it will. But that's kind of depressing. So I'll just tell you how this work that I was doing made me feel. Because I think that is still worth it. I liked doing this. I do feel like I improved a lot. I feel like I got to play with color better than I ever had before. And that means a lot. Someone just dropped a plate outside my door. I hope they dropped it again. I don't know what they're doing. Anyway. So yeah. I like. They're talking about moving a table. You can probably hear them. They're loud as hell, and they won't shut the fuck up. Anyway, I like this piece because I work with color, and I felt like I finally got a better grasp on highlights and shadows and contrast, and that was cool. So, I do think it was worth it, to me, at least. I hope someone else can look at it and be like, well, that's sick. That's sick, dude. And genuinely mean it. Not just, like, saying it to make me feel good, because you never know. But that's all I really have is that, like, just keep doing it. Even if you don't know it's going to work out, You don't have to put all your chips onto it, Security first. Make sure you can feed yourself and pay rent and stuff like that. But I still think it's worth it. So yeah. Anyway, I kind of, by the time I got to like the letters, my heart wasn't in it as much, and the detail had gotten to me. And you're like, well, Brian, this isn't even that detailed, and I'm like, yeah, I know, but it was to me. Um, so yeah, characters are interesting, or letters are interesting because they're sort of like mini little character design you put into like each letter, and they definitely require a lot more time than I put into it. But I still kind of like it. It still fits with my like more high contrasty, thick line art kind of look. Um, but yeah, I don't really have anything else to say about the drawing right now. I'm gonna go out soon and go on a little bike adventure. Um, so that's gonna be fun. Take some photos, reference photos. Trying to maximize, trying to optimize my time spent on this earth doing things that I want to do. I can't just go on a bike ride. I need to go on a bike ride and then take pictures and then use the pictures for art, and then I need to take that art and then go sell it to people. None of this feel good. There's no time to feel good. It's just go, 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 make money, do all that stuff. Grinding constantly. But yeah. Anyway, this was my comic book art. I think it looks pretty. I like it. I don't know if it looks pretty good. It looks I think. But I like it. Anyway, so I hope you like it too. This is what it looks like in the end. Yeah. So this is what I was doing now, and here's the showcase for the old art I used to do side by side, and boom! Look at that. Isn't it terrible? One thing in my notes about that is my hand is in that picture. I'm sorry to disappoint everyone. I am in fact white. Sorry. I'll make a apology video soon.